cultures ultimately reduce themselves to three forms of manifestation on moral issues. Based on this backdrop, three forms. I want you to follow me carefully. The words are big, but the ideas will become clear. I think Paul Tillich was the first one who talked about it in these terms. There are three kinds of culture: theonomous, heteronymous, and autonomous. Theonomous, not a theocracy. Theos meaning God, nomos meaning law. The idea in a theonomous culture is that God's law is so self-evident within the human heart that there are some imperatives within you that find a consensus in society. That's God's law in you. The nomos, the law of the theos, God, is so ingrained in your soul that there is an emerging consensus within society of certain norms that everyone agrees in are noble, or the opposite of them being evil and not to be pursued. If there is a culture today that comes close to a theonomous culture, I would say it is India. They refer to themselves in Hindi as Dharti ke Aadmi, the people of the soil. Their music talks about it, their lyricists talk about it, their poetry talks about it. The values that the culture tries to hold on to, principally respect for the parents, love for the children, the transmission from generation to generation, the closeness of the family tie, all of those values they consider ingrained within them. They say it's deep within them. There's a theonomous nature to it. It's not identical, but it's close to a theonomous culture. But then you get a heteronymous culture. What is a heteronymous culture? Heteros meaning different, nomos law, a different law, where there are two distinct sets in operation. There's the controlling few and the masses down here. In secular terminology, Marxism is a heteronymous culture, where the handful at the top dictate everything for the masses below. In religious terms, Islam functions as a heteronymous culture. Either the ulama or the imam or whoever, the dictates are given to you from above, and the masses are then told to follow along. There is a heteronomy to it. The law comes from above, dictated to the masses, whether you want to do it or not. And then there's an autonomous culture. The autonomous culture, autos meaning self, nomos meaning law. You're a self-law. You're a law unto yourself. You follow your individual autonomy. America would not fit into a theonomous culture. It would not fit into a heteronymous culture by definition. We pride ourselves in the fact that we are an autonomous culture. So here's the question. If we are an autonomous culture, do we respect the autonomy of each individual? If I respect the person who disagrees with me and wants to live a totally materialistic life, ought not that compliment to be returned and give me the privilege of having my autonomy and my choice to follow God and my choice to follow where I believe the truth has led? Autonomous cultures pride themselves in being self-driven and individually driven. But I'll tell you what, there are some questions that bait the hook. Will turn the questions towards people like me or others, force us to answer it under the guise of an autonomous culture. But the moment my view is not in keeping with the view that wants to be heard, it's switched into a heteronymous culture, and I'm dictated to and told this is exactly what I need to believe and not what I actually believe. This bait and switch that has taken place is striking, absolutely striking. So we don't go with the theonomous culture here. We don't go with the heteronymous culture. We claim to go with an autonomous culture, but autonomous cultures need to be mutually respectful. And I think what the Duke of Edinburgh once said, he said, freedom can be destroyed not only by its retraction, but also by its abuse. And so I'll leave you with two thoughts. In the first one, I'll do a little bit of a voice play here, not in any way to be unkind, but because it was so beautiful and so sweet, so sweetly done. In the 1980s, when the Cold War was still on, my wife, a couple colleagues, and I were invited to go to Russia. So we're in Moscow. Quite a cold day, foggy day, and we went in. My host said, "Would you like to have lunch?" I said, "Sure." So we had lunch, and things were pretty sparse then. Everything was a different consistency of mayonnaise. Mayonnaise bound this, mayonnaise bound that. Mayonnaise may just make you feel full. But you know, people were struggling. You looked at the empty shelves and you said, what are we to mock that? So the waitress was a lovely Russian gal, bilingual, and she spoke in a sweet voice, and we finished our lunch, and then she leaned over very nicely and said, would you like to have some dessert? So my host said, well, things have changed. We can also have dessert. I said, oh, that'll be lovely. What do you have? She said, ice cream. We said, what else? Ice cream. He said, oh, okay. Yeah, we'd like to have some ice cream. What flavor would you like? We said, what flavor do you have? Vanilla. We said, any other flavor? No, vanilla. So the man on the left said, would you like to have vanilla ice cream for dessert? I said, yes, we would. He said, you know the genius? She actually walked away from here thinking she gave you a choice of desserts. That's what this game of tolerance can become. We're actually given the idea that we have a choice. Is it true? It ought to be true. And that's why Os Guinness is right. He thinks civility is a better word than tolerance, where you may learn to accept what another person believes, but you don't have to celebrate it, and in civil manner, you disagree. A cartoon I saw years ago with Dennis the Menace sitting in front of his lemonade stand. Sign, all you can drink for 10 cents. So a little guy stops and puts up his 10 cents, and Dennis the Menace takes the glass and pours a wee little bit into his glass and gives it to him. In the next frame of the cartoon, he's looking bewildered, saying, what? You know, in the third frame of the cartoon, Dennis is saying, I says it's all you can drink for 10 cents. That's who says it's all you can drink for 10 cents. Is that what tolerance is becoming? We tell you what it all means. That's who tells you what it all really means. I hope not. Daniel Yankeliewicz's article ended by the survey of many American couples, and he ended by saying the stakes are high. If you feel it is imperative to fill all your needs, and if these needs are contradictory or in conflict with those of others or simply unfillable, then frustration inevitably follows. To Abby and to Mark as well, self-fulfillment means having a career, having a career and marriage and children and sexual freedom and autonomy and being liberal and having money and choosing nonconformity and insisting on social justice and enjoying city life and country living and simplicity and graciousness and reading and good friends and on and on. But the individual is not truly fulfilled by becoming ever more autonomous. Indeed, to move too far in this direction is to risk psychosis, the ultimate form of autonomy. The injunction that to find oneself, one must lose oneself, contains the truth any seeker of self-fulfillment needs to grasp. The injunction that to find oneself, one must lose oneself, contains the truth any seeker of self-fulfillment needs to grasp. I could have saved him millions of dollars of research if he'd read the Gospel of John. That if any man come unto me, can deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. There was a man in Pakistan, a medical doctor, who became a devout follower of Jesus Christ. We were telling our stories to each other. I said to me, what happened? He told me the long story from whence he had come, what happened, and the transformation that happened in his life when he began to follow Christ. He said, Ravi ji, a respectful term within our language. This gentleman's from Pakistan, so he spoke Hindi, Urdu, and all of that. He said, Ravi ji, I was a hostile skeptic. I hated anything about anyone that claimed the truth. He said, in the closing sentence of this message that I had to listen to because my wife took me there, the man speaking said, in surrendering, you win. In dying, you live. In surrendering, you win. In dying, you live. Christ invites us to ultimately die to ourselves, to find out the beauty of the real self he has made in you and me, and make that beautiful person who learns to live even in a contrary society, shining a light in a dark world. If you told me at the age of 17 that that would be my calling in life, I would never have believed it. But what God did in transforming my heart, in changing my hungers, in making me the person he wanted me to be, I have not looked back over these decades and found the fulfillment and joy and meaning and consider it a great privilege to be living in America now and having the opportunity to raise my family here, to make a living, and to be able to share the love of Christ wherever we go. And I thank you at UCLA for giving me this opportunity. God bless you.